Welcome to this explainer where we're diving into a really fascinating economic study out of Pakistan. It kind of turns a core belief about how countries get rich completely on its head. The big idea? For some nations, exporting more stuff might actually make them poorer. Let's dig in and find out how that could possibly be true. So, to really get why these findings are such a big deal, we first have to talk about a foundational idea in economics. A theory that's been guiding countries for literally centuries. It's called the export-led growth hypothesis, and the idea, which goes way back to thinkers like Adam Smith, is pretty simple. The more a country sells to the rest of the world, the richer it's going to get. Exports are seen as the engine that drives the whole economy forward. Now, if you take that theory, a country like Pakistan seems like the perfect case study, right? It's got this massive agricultural base, so you'd think exporting all those goods would be a guaranteed ticket to wealth. And I mean, just look at the numbers from the time this study covered. Agriculture wasn't just part of Pakistan's economy. It was pretty much the whole game. We're talking over 21% of GDP and employing a staggering 45% of the entire workforce. It was the backbone of everything. So you can imagine when researchers sat down to analyze 36 years of data, all the way from 1972 to 2008, they fully expected to see that export theory play out. More farm exports should equal more growth. Simple. But, well, the data told a very, very different story. What this study found was just completely backwards from what you'd expect. Sure, exporting manufactured goods, non-agricultural stuff, that boosted the economy just like the theory says. But exporting agricultural goods, that was actually linked to a decrease in economic growth. Yeah, you heard that right. And they put a number on it, a negative coefficient of negative 0.06. What that means in plain English is for every 1% increase in agricultural exports, the country's GDP actually went down. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Selling more of your main product was tied to the entire economy shrinking. This finding just completely flips conventional wisdom on its head. And it brings us to the absolute heart of this study's puzzle. How on earth could selling more stuff to the world actually make your country poorer? Well, the researchers argue that the answer isn't about how much you're exporting, but what you're exporting. See, it all comes down to the huge difference between selling raw materials and selling finished goods. Here's the problem in a nutshell. Pakistan was basically selling the raw ingredients, not the finished meal. It was shipping out all these low-value, unprocessed goods instead of turning them into something more valuable before selling them. Think about cotton. You can export a big bale of raw cotton and make some money. But what if you took that exact same cotton, spun it into thread, wove it into fabric, and made, say, t-shirts or jeans? That finished product sells for way, way more. Pakistan was basically stuck just selling the cotton, not the clothes. And look, the researchers don't mince words. They state it very clearly in their summary, writing that agricultural exports have a negative relationship with economic growth, while non-agricultural exports have a positive one. It's about as direct as you can get. But the mystery actually gets a little deeper. The study also found that just adding more machines or hiring more workers also had a negative effect on growth. And this points to some really big systemic problems. Things like using old, outdated technology and a workforce that just wasn't trained well enough to be productive. Okay, so the study doesn't just point out all the problems. The good news is it also proposes a way forward, a new blueprint for growth based on everything they found. And the recommendations are really direct. First, start shifting your focus away from exporting raw materials. Step 2, and this is the big one, start converting those raw goods into finished, value-added products. And of course, to make that happen, you need steps 3 and 4. Invest in education to create a skilled workforce and get your hands on modern technology. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Why does this one study about Pakistan's economy from a few decades ago really matter to the rest of us today? Well, the lesson here is pretty universal. This really isn't just a story about Pakistan. You can think of it as a playbook for any developing nation that's rich in natural resources. It shows that real sustainable growth isn't just about getting into the global market. It's all about how you decide to play the game. And that really leaves us with one final and I think crucial question. This whole analysis forces us to rethink what economic growth even means. Is the real path to prosperity just about selling more, or is it about selling smarter?